So I do not actually own a rapier or a foil, or an epee for that matter, but amongst at least bladed weapons, which is going to be the top shelf for me at the top of my list because I've had a lot of practice with them as other people, as other versions of myself. I've had a lot of practice with them, very learned in them. I was naturally born with a gift for them, an inherent talent for using them. A lot of other weapons as well, but mainly bladed weapons, knives and swords. Amongst them, I would have to say a foil, or more preferably a rapier, is probably my favorite. Between that, a katana and a traditional Tai Chi sword, actually designed for sword dancing, an artistic weapon, that would be my favorites. Those three would be my top favorites. A dai katana, rather, a longer blade katana than the one I have, but the one I have is perfect for me. They're just very elegant weapons. As I said, I don't own one. I used to have a foil. I no longer have that, but I never owned a rapier. I intend to have one made someday, the six-finger sword from the Princess Bride, because it's just so fucking spectacular. But they're high precision instruments, and I love that about them. They're very good for practice as well, especially for sword dancing, which is my personal meditation. That I always had a knack for it. It always felt right. And later on in my training, I actually met a mentor who trained me in it, a friend John Boyd, who helped me learn how to master the art of it, the meditative aspect of it. And I've used that ever since as my personal balancer. It's always just been the best thing for me. In any case, for a rapier, you're going to have something very similar to the stick that I use. It's going to be straight, it's going to be longer than this, and it's going to be weighted more toward the grip end, which you'd have a guard here on an epee or a foil. You'd have a kind of a cup that would wrap around your hand, and your hand would actually be inside of that cup, which the epee has a tiny little handle that you grip with your fingers more so than your palm. But for a rapier, which is the one that we're actually going to be talking about here, it would have a very well-crafted, artistic sort of a guard there that is usually kind of the signature of the blade. And as for the six-finger sword, why I want it so much, it's going to have it would have a longer handle that's more weighted in the hilt to allow for it to have a better balance and be more like a fusion of the katana and the rapier. In any case, to use it properly, what you're doing is gripping it somewhere toward the center of the handle, and you would be flicking it. Your body's going to be rigid. As always, you're going to bring the energy that you're using up from the foot that you're leaning on. However, with traditional fencing, with the foil and such, you'd be shifting weight a lot, and that's pretty much where it all comes from. When you shift that weight, you bring it into the hip, into the shoulder, into the elbow, but very quickly into the wrist, and snap it. And it's all in the wrist. You need a very strong wrist. And you need to be able to snap that. And or as opposed to most other blades, where a katana would be used for, slicing, as I showed you, throw the hilt and drag the blade, sweep the blade behind it. With a rapier or a foil, what you're actually doing is you're only using the very tip of that blade. If you tried to slice it with this, you're gonna break it, you're gonna bend it, you're gonna just fuck it all up. damage the pristine quality of the weapon. You're only using the very tip of this weapon, and that's why it's such high precision. Is you gotta be able to aim that point, snap it like a whip, and hit your target for a quick gash. Once you set them off guard, you step in, stab. So basically, that's it. All of your weight, you're shifting your weight, you're throwing your weight into the weapon, and that weight has got to come into the hilt, which is where you're going to keep it. You're keeping the weight in the hilt so that you can guide it more effectively, and you are thrusting the weight into that tip, snapping it. And if you're doing it properly, you will be able to feel the energy that you're putting forth. You'll be able to feel the gravity of yourself projected into that blade. And in that sense, you can actually feel the blade for the most part, especially if you're gifted in using tactile imaging. You'll be able to feel the length of that blade, and you will actually be able to direct it in such a way as, like for example, if you poke something with your finger, you're able to tense the muscles in your finger to keep it from bending, unless you're jabbing it into a brick wall or something, doing stupid shit like that where people want to strengthen their fingers. It's not very practical. You generally don't want to use your fingers because they too will break. But you will be able to feel the length of that blade just like you feel the finger. You'll feel your gravity go into that, and you'll be able to balance it out once you get good with it to the point where you can effectively jab without, bending it or causing damage to the blade. So that's the practice you want, and with that you can apply that to other weapons, of course. The shifting of your gravity into the weapon. But with other heavier blades like the katana, you generally want to be leaning off of it, because the sword is going to propel itself. If you're doing it properly, there's going to build up a static charge. There is the warping of the blade, and then the general impulse, the gravity that you put into it is going to be pulling the blade, causing it to sweep on its own. Whereas with the rapier, you have to be right into it. Now with the foil, there's a bit of a difference. With the foil, a foil's going to extend, it's going to fold to a certain extent. It's like swinging a tree branch, a weaker tree branch is going to curve as you throw it, and so you need to stop short, because the edge of that, the very end of it, the point is going to snap at your target like a whip. And so the foil, you could say in that regard, is an even more high precision instrument, because you actually have to know the trajectory of it, and you can't calculate that trajectory. You have to use your sense of trajectory. You have to feel that. It's not something that you can calculate via mathematics or geometry. You actually have to have a good feel for it. And like I said, I always have. It's just natural for me, but, well, I mean, not natural. I learned it at some point long, long ago, but in this lifetime, it's something that I just was born with. But for beginners, it's something that you can pick up fairly quickly if you put enough practice into it. If you put enough care into it, it's something that you can get a handle on fairly quickly. It might take a few years to master it, but it's not terribly difficult, and it's worth it, considering that with this particular sort of weapon especially, you master that, specifically a Tai Chi sword, but a rapier, foil, even a katana to a certain extent, but basically just the stick, straight pull weapon. You master that, and you can essentially pick up anything. At that point, everything in the whole world becomes a potential potential weapon. If you're ever in danger, you're ever in trouble, you know, you need to do something, take care of something along those lines. When you've mastered this, and this is what we start with when we train people for the sword, when I train people for sword dancing and to use weapons, period, they start with that stick. That is what a tenno begins with. This stick. Exactly this. Not this exact stick, because this is mine, but you know, I'll get them a copy of this and I will give it to them. It's a simple dowel rod. And I train them with this, and from this you can practice any weapon. With this stick you can practice any weapon, katana, whatever. And you know, it doesn't matter, even though it doesn't have a curvature, that curve will come into play when you're using an actual katana, and you'll feel there's a vast difference between the two. But you can get the essentials, the basics with this stick. You can get the basics for just about anything, and once you've mastered this stick, you'll never be without a practical tool again. You'll never be really in danger. If you have mastered this, there is nobody you can't take down with just about anything you can find lying around. So that is it. That's the basics for the rapier or the foil, which we'll be making another video not too long from now, maybe tonight, I don't know, sometime I'll make a video. Practicing with the stick to show you guys how it's. A lot of you have already seen it. You know, there are videos on the page, but I don't have one on YouTube yet, so I'm going to go ahead and do that soon. I gotta get myself out of the funk that I'm in, so that ought to be a good way to go about it. Anyhow, thank you for the time, and as it is a difference with this than the actual katana, which the katana is very, very dangerous. That is one of the most potentially dangerous weapons, objects ever created. It is something that requires patience, elegance, mastery. But with the stick, you can go to town with this. You can practice all kinds of different things. You can do whatever you want. So pick up a dowel rod, good one, a sturdy one, not a teeny tiny skinny one, but a good sturdy one. Practice away, man. It's excellent meditation. It's excellent exercise. It's very helpful. There's nothing. You can't go wrong with that. You know, there's nothing bad about that. So I highly suggest that you just get yourself a stick and practice away. If you ever need to vent, take out frustrations, if you need to balance yourself, anything you need to do, or if you just want to know how to defend yourself, want to learn how to use weapons, period, because as I said, it's a basic backing. This is the basic build for any weapon you'll ever use. Doesn't matter what it is, you're going to be able to get the gist of it from this. And once you've mastered this, it's always on hand. Pick up a fucking tree branch, break a chair, leg off, I don't know, whatever you want to do, you know, pick up a fucking vase, it doesn't matter. Once you've got the basics of this, you'll be able to handle anything. So, there you are. And good luck with that. Well, we don't believe in luck. Good skill and excellence to you all. I will see you later.